Welcome to LobbyComply Pod from State and Federal Communications. We are your source for lobbying, compliance, ethics, campaign finance, and election news from across the country. Hello, I'm Elizabeth Bartz, President and CEO of State and Federal Communications. Today, I am here with Jim Sedor, who has been with the company 25 years.
That's right.
And has managed our news service that we call News You Can Use. And I'm excited to sit here and talk to him about it because it's a long-standing service that we have provided to the community to really understand why we do what we do.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's my pleasure to be here.
As we just mentioned, News You Can Use is 25 years old. Just didn't pop into our head, but we would see articles in a newspaper. That's a document that used to be delivered to your doorstep every morning. And Nola Warren and I were like, this is information we have got to capture, but neither one of us had the time to do that. So we put an ad in the Akron Beacon Journal. This was before Indeed. And Jim Sedor had applied for the position and had been a student at Kent State University, working on a master's in library science. And we thought, this is perfect. And we got together with him. He put together these articles, and then we thought, other people have got to know this information. But how do we get it out there? It was just Nola and I. It's like, we want to put this together. Well, Ren Kuzer had just started at the company. He said, we'll put it in a database and we'll send it out to people. And that's what we started doing. And we were doing it every week. And Jim would coordinate. You know, there are some states you want to do every week. Then there are some states who don't make it to the weekly news. But we put everything together and it seemed to go over with our clients and our colleagues. And so Jim has had great job security for 25 years. I don't know if either of us will be here in 25 years, but I'm glad we're putting this down in stone for the future to remember.
Well, at the beginning, it was all in a database. I would just distribute it to the staff in-house. And then it just grew from there. You know, I didn't know exactly what I should be looking for. Only it was in campaign finance, ethics, elections, lobbying, topics like that. So I was able to create this position and set up all the parameters for it and then see it through to now 25 years later. Really, the internet made this possible because there was no way I could be going through all of these newspapers. They just didn't exist unless I went to the local library. So this made it possible to sort of check everything quickly and make sure it was accurate and make sure it was the things that we needed to know about and our clients needed to know about.
Well, I think a lot of as it looked to jurisdictions, if I'm not mistaken, there were about 10 or 12 that we wanted every week. Ohio, California, Massachusetts, the states that were in session all year long and had a lot of information. And then the other ones, he would just, 1 week look at Montana, the next week look at Wyoming and, see how we could add to it. But he's right. I mean, we were looking at newspapers and now you're looking at everything because there are so many other news organizations out there, most of them electronic, and we can easily get the information.
I often see court decisions, new laws that are passed, taking effect before our research team does. That's just the nature of being online every day, all day. So I'm able to act as sort of a backstop so that we do not miss anything important. And all of our clients know that we are getting everything that is out there and we will have everything covered. And that's a big part of our business, to catch everything that happens so that no one gets into any kind of trouble. They can rely on us to have the most up-to-date information possible.
I would like to add something to that because I think that there are maybe just 2 instances where we were there when it happened. One of them, I know Jim is going to talk about when we were at the Council on Governmental Ethics Laws and Governor Rod Blagojevich was arrested while the Council on Governmental Ethics Laws was meeting in Chicago. He'll get into that. But we have an issue here in Ohio with First Energy, which is right down the street from us. And when the FBI came in, there were helicopters all over the skies of Akron. And I thought, something is happening here. And we were able to get information. Now, we're not like, beat reporters going out. We don't have typewriters everywhere. Let's get this article in. But we were able to let people know what was going on at that time.
We were at the COGA conference in 2008. I was sitting at a table with members of the Illinois State Ethics Commission. I believe is during the keynote speech. All of a sudden, all of their phones went off, started ringing at the same time. They got up, excused themselves, answered the calls, and one man came back and said, "I'm sorry, we have to go back to the Capitol. Our governor has been led away in handcuffs." And that is how we found out that Rod Blagojevich had been arrested.
Do you know what I say all the time? You cannot make this stuff up, okay? I mean, really, when Jim speaks at staff meetings, most of the time I'm like, are you kidding me? They did that, they did this, and you just can't make this stuff up. So we want to make sure everybody knows what we're looking at. Every week there's a lot of articles. So Jim, how many articles do you estimate we have put out there to the community?
Well, we average about 40 articles a week. So 40 articles a week, 52 weeks a year, 25 years. That is about 50,000 articles.
That is amazing because we do let him take a vacation every once in a while. And so other people need to fill in to make sure we're getting the news out. And I'm just grateful we haven't had some earth-shaking news at a time Jim Sedor is not in the office.
And Elizabeth, I'm the only one who has held this job for 25 years.
I know. He has held it. But I did want to add, Jim has been very protective of the position. He's had pretty much one assistant that has stayed, and that is Joe May, who now does our corporate social responsibility. But he does handle it with ease, and he gets his work done, and we've been able to please a lot of our clients. I know some people have mentioned News You Can Use at the Practicing Law Institute, 2-day program. We go on lobbying and campaign finance law in the fall. And we had one of our subscription clients, Wes Bazell from Altria, who said every Friday he sends it to his staff so they can read it over the weekend. And I'm sure they read it joyfully, like, oh, here's that email again from Wes. But it is something that people need to know about to protect what's going on. There's so much more now going on with procurement lobbying, selling to the states, and sales folks who truly do not understand the consequences their companies can be in if they violate the procurement lobbying law. It's happening all the time, and we really try to get out there and work with these companies, but we know we're not getting to everybody.
At one COGL we attended at a session conducted by Netta Masser, who was then with the Philadelphia Board of Ethics. We learned that she drew on News You Can Use when training new employees. Netta said she liked to point out the most egregious examples of wrongdoing that News You Can Use found. We adopted that as sort of a motto for what we try to find in News You Can Use.
It is a great shout out to COGL. They did provide state and federal communications with the Outstanding Service Award during the pandemic because we didn't stop. and we'd been providing this service to Kogel members for free. They didn't have to be a subscriber. We thought it would help them understand what was going on, and we have been a great resource to Kogel, and we appreciate everything Kogel does for the ethics community. So I joke around a lot that when I retire, I know, don't laugh, I have a book I want to write called Another One Bites the Dust. I'll give the credit that I have to Queen for the name of the title. But sometimes it is amazing to me what people are doing. And the thing is, it didn't just happen. This stuff has been going on for a long, long time. I did one of those Picha Kucha programs at a state government affairs council a few years ago. And one person came up to me and said, "Stop blasting Ohio legislators." It was like, but it's so easy to do. They want to go golfing. They want to, rent somebody's apartment. And, we had a state official that seemed like he was running a fraternity house while he was a state official. It's just so easy to do. But I do watch out because there seem to be a lot of Ohio legislators involved, as there are Greek American legislators. I also try to protect them, but there's no protecting Spiro Agnew. I just think it would be interesting to put all of this information together in a book, but my husband reminds me that nobody's going to buy the Encyclopedia Britannica of ethics corruptions.
I wanted to say that News You Can Use is a nonpartisan service. Democrat, Republican, Independent. Your party affiliation does not matter. It's your conduct that we want to know about, and we will take on anyone.
I will say, I agree with Jim Sedor, but when you look at it, it's primarily men. There was that one woman, that congresswoman from Utah, Aaron something or other, who didn't know she had to sign her own tax forms, and her husband said he signed them for her. That's a whole nother subject, ladies. But they really, I'm sorry to say, primarily men. Jim, I'm always looking for the most egregious news, like something nobody else knows about, or like, you got to be kidding me. So what do you have for me today?
Today we have the case of New York City Mayor Eric Adams, in a case that is unique in its egregiousness. Adams was indicted by federal prosecutors for allegedly taking bribes from Turkish business executives and at least one government official. It was the first criminal case against a New York City mayor in modern history. Adams allegedly ordered the fire department to grant approval to a new Turkish consular building in Manhattan, though it was not in compliance with safety codes. Prosecutors said he had accepted illegal campaign contributions and luxury travel and cheated the city's matching campaign funds program by using illicit donations to support his application. Once the indictment was returned in 2024, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan pursued the prosecution aggressively. But after the change in administrations, the Trump Justice Department reversed course, ordering prosecutors to seek dismissal of the charges. Danielle Sassoon, the interim U.S. attorney, refused to obey the order and resigned, and a spate of resignations among prosecutors in New York and Washington followed. Justice Department officials, including Emile Beauvais, then the acting deputy attorney general, ended up filing the motion to dismiss themselves. The Justice Department argued the bribery and fraud charges should be dropped because they were brought too close to the mayoral election, and the prosecution was hindering the mayor's cooperation with President Trump's plans on immigration in New York. U.S. District Court Judge Dale Ho ultimately dismissed the charges against Adams. The judge said the law left him with little recourse but to dismiss the charges because the administration abandoned the case. He made clear, though, that his ruling did not address the merits of the case or whether a trial should have occurred, and the judge refused to let the government retain the option of reinstating the charges as the Justice Department had sought. He criticized the department's reasoning, calling it unprecedented and breathtaking in its sweep. Beauvais had argued that Justice Department officials had virtually unreviewable discretion to end cases. The judge seized on that phrase in his opinion, calling it disturbing in its breadth. Beauvais' argument, the judge wrote, suggested that public officials may receive special dispensation if they are compliant with the incumbent administration's policy priorities. That suggestion is fundamentally incompatible with the basic promise of equal justice under the law.
This is what he was born to do, and he does a great job at it, and I'm very honored that he has stayed here for 25 years. This is not his retirement by any chance, but I just really thank Jim for the service that he has put in to this community. And again, this isn't something that you can find anywhere else.
This has been the perfect job for me because I'm interested in politics and what's happening in the country as it is. So that I get to come to work every day and read the New York Times and the Washington Post cover to cover practically. It's been a great opportunity for me, and I thank you.
You are welcome. I can't read the New York Times and Washington Post cover to cover every day. So that's why we have Jim Sedor here. Well, I think this is a wrap for this podcast. I want to thank Jim Sedor for being here today, but most of all for being here for 25 years for News You Can Use.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Thanks for listening to LobbyComply Pod from State and Federal Communications. For more news, visit LobbyComply.com. To learn more about how we can guide you along the road to compliance, visit stateandfed.com.